First European-born player to be drafted first overall, Mats Sundin became the first European-born player to be selected first overall in the NHL draft when he was drafted by the Quebec Nordiques in 1989. Maurice Richard, the economics of his contract negotiations and salaries. Maurice Richard, also known as the Rocket, was a legendary ice hockey player who played for the Montreal Canadiens in the National Hockey League (NHL) in the 1940s and 1950s. Throughout his career, Richard was known for his exceptional scoring ability and his fiery passion for the game. However, behind the scenes, Richard was also known for his savvy business acumen when it came to negotiating contracts and salaries. In this video, we will delve into the economics of Maurice Richard's contract negotiations and salaries, exploring how he was able to secure lucrative deals and pave the way for future generations of hockey players. Negotiating power. Maurice Richard was not only a talented hockey player, but also a shrewd negotiator when it came to his contracts. In the 1940s and 1950s, the NHL was a much different landscape than it is today. Players did not have agents to negotiate on their behalf, and contracts were often signed without much input from the players themselves. However, Richard was one of the first players to challenge this status quo and take control of his own negotiations. Richard's negotiating power came from his on-ice performance and his popularity with fans. He was not only a skilled player, but also a charismatic figure who drew crowds to the arenas. This popularity translated into financial success for the Montreal Canadiens, as they were able to sell more tickets and merchandise thanks to Richard's star power. As a result, Richard had leverage when it came to negotiating his contracts. He was able to demand higher salaries and better terms, knowing that the Canadiens could not afford to lose him. In fact, Richard's negotiating tactics paved the way for future hockey players to take control of their own financial destinies and demand fair compensation for their talents. Salaries. In terms of salaries, Maurice Richard was one of the highest-paid players of his era. He signed several lucrative contracts throughout his career, setting new benchmarks for player compensation. One of the most notable contracts Richard signed was in 1957, when he became the first player in NHL history to earn over $25,000 in a single season. Richard's high salaries were a reflection of his value to the Montreal Canadiens and the league as a whole. He was a prolific goal scorer and a fan favorite, making him a valuable asset both on and off the ice. As a result, the Canadiens were willing to pay top dollar to keep Richard in the fold, knowing that his presence would help drive revenue for the team. Furthermore, Richard's success in negotiating high salaries inspired other players to do the same. His willingness to challenge the status quo and demand fair compensation paved the way for future generations of players to earn what they deserve for their talents and hard work. Legacy. Maurice Richard's impact on the economics of contract negotiations and salaries in hockey cannot be overstated. He was a trailblazer who challenged the traditional power dynamics between players and teams, setting new standards for player compensation and empowerment. Richard's success in negotiating lucrative contracts and securing fair salaries laid the groundwork for future generations of players to follow in his footsteps and demand what they are worth. Today, Maurice Richard's legacy lives on in the NHL and beyond. His impact on the economics of hockey can still be felt as players continue to negotiate for fair compensation and assert their worth in a competitive market. Richard's influence extends far beyond the ice, as he paved the way for athletes in all sports to take control of their financial destinies and demand fair treatment in contract negotiations. In conclusion, Maurice Richard was not only a hockey legend, but also a pioneer in the economics of sports. His savvy negotiating tactics and ability to secure lucrative contracts set new standards for player compensation and empowerment, leaving a lasting impact on the world of hockey and beyond. As we continue to celebrate Richard's accomplishments, we can also learn valuable lessons from his approach to contract negotiations and salaries, inspiring us to demand what we deserve in our own professional endeavors.